The Stephenville Planning and Zoning Commission together. We have several items on the agenda tonight. You may have noticed that we have minutes for February, but we don't have those available for tonight. So hopefully we'll have those at our next meeting. So our first item tonight is case number SV 2018-001. Applicant Bo Mayo is requesting a subdivision waiver from section 6.20 Parkland Design, Dedication, and Fees for the development to be constructed at 1000 Old Hyco Road. Jeremy?
The Parkland dedication portion of the subdivision ordinance was adopted in 2012. The updated subdivision was adopted in January 2008. It has been applied to similar projects such as Mustang Ranch and Creekside Townhomes. This section, 6.20 Parkland Design, Dedication, and Fees, is intended to ensure that adequate recreational areas in the form of neighborhood and community parks are provided to meet the additional needs created by a new residential subdivision. The provisions of this section shall apply to all new residential development within the city and all residential subdivisions within the ETJ after the effective date of this ordinance, for which a final plat or preliminary plat is required to be submitted to the city for approval. And each multifamily unit is 400. So he is asking for a waiver from this subdivision ordinance.
Okay. Thank you, Jeremy. I'm now going to open the public hearing, and anybody who wishes to come forward and speak in favor of this request, please come to the podium and state your name, please.
Bo Mayo. Should I speak on everything right now, or just?
Nope.
No?
Just the one. We're going to take each one separately.
Okay, well, all right. Well, I wanted to give you guys a brief history of my experience here with the city government as far as getting permits, building, everything else. First permit I got was in 1995, and that was just for a little remodel deal, and I did several deals like that. In 2003, I built 12-unit apartment building on Swan Street, and I came in here, talked to the people, and they said gather up the stuff you need. I needed a site plan and a building plan, 2 drawings. So I go back in there with that stuff. I walk out of there that day with a permit. Took me 20 minutes. I mean, nowadays it's crazy. It takes forever. And I know things have changed around here since that time, where there's a lot more people here. But I know how it can be, and it doesn't have to be so complicated. The last few deals I've done, you know, it's taken me 6 months to gather up all the stuff I needed to get a permit, and then I go build the project in 3 months. So I think it's getting out of hand. And what's really frustrating is when you do one deal. I did a project on College Farm Road. I just finished it in August. It's the exact same deal as this. It's a multifamily, same zoning. I also had to replat that property, but when I come in, so I think I know what to expect when I come in here to get, you know, permits and stuff. Well, it's frustrating because they changed the rules on me. This is a whole different deal. They're calling this a subdivision, which I don't agree with that. I don't think it's a subdivision. Subdivision is a place where you split up lots, sell them off. This is one property, one owner. You know, I don't agree with it being called a subdivision. And I'm not saying, I'm not throwing Jeremy Allen under the bus. I think he's a good guy, and I think he's doing a good job up here. I'm just telling you my experience and how much more difficult it has got here to do business, to be able to get a permit and get started on something. With regards to the Parks and Recreation fee, I don't agree with it. I think it's just another tax. I think that I pay taxes, and I think that should cover that. And I wanted to say something about that Parks and Recreation fee. What if it caused, like on my project, it's gonna be $26,000. What if it caused me not to do this project because I can't afford to do it because of that? The taxes on this right now are about $2,000 a year. After I get the project completed, it'll be about $50,000 or $60,000 a year coming into the city. I mean, what if you cause someone to not do a project because of this $26,000 fee, and you lose $60,000 from now on? So, that's my deal, I guess. That's all I got.
Okay. All right. Thank you, sir. Are there any, I'm going to open it up for questions for Mr. Mayo. Are there any questions from the commissioners?
Who designated it as a subdivision?
Well, I guess Jeremy and them did. You know, I don't understand. They tried to explain to me why it was called a subdivision. I didn't understand it. So,
In your
but my
plan?
last project, exactly the same project, multifamily. I also had to replat that one. It was not called a subdivision.
All right,
Yep. So that's why, you know, it's frustrating.
How many units are you building?
65 at this place. I built 36 at the last one, and I'll be doing 65 at this one.
Jeremy, what's the definition of subdivision? And I read something that said, I mean, is it any land that's developed? Or, I mean, how is this legally fit in?
Our subdivision regulates, all land is subdivided. Stephenville is one piece of land that's subdivided. So subdivided into additions, lots, blocks, additions. So this particular parcel or this piece of lot, it applies to subdivision. If you even look at the definitions, a lot is required to follow the subdivision regulations. So this is,
Okay,
this
so
is,
if I put a house on one lot, am I still required to follow these rules,
well, is the lot platted already?
Let's say yes. So this is only for something that has to be replatted,
Like a new development.
a new development.
Right.
So if it's in a neighborhood that already exists, it's fine, you don't have to do this. But if it's some area that you're
Right.
going
So
to
you're gonna have
restructure
you're
in
gonna have to
some
do a
way?
new final plat, you would have to follow the subdivision regulations. My guess is that your street out in front of that subdivision would probably be already taken care of, so you would be doing the final plat and meeting the regulations. And the street's probably, you know, depending on if you're building in a neighborhood or not, it's probably already to its, you know, where it needs to be. So, you know, depending on each development is what's gonna apply the subdivision regulations, so. In this particular development, these do.
I have some questions. I want
Please.
to go back and talk a little bit about your College Farm Road.
Yes, sir.
When did you request a permit to put the project together on the College Farm Road?
Well, that would have probably been 2015 or so. I mean, Jeremy wasn't here at the time that I originally got my permit for over there.
So effectively, you were under the 2012 version of this subdivision ordinance before it was updated in 2018.
Yes, sir, I guess so.
Okay. Now, at the time that you obtained your permit for the College Farm Road project, at that time, was this project subject to being classified as a subdivision?
The College Farm Road.
Yes.
Well, I guess I don't understand your question. Is it is it the same as this project?
Question is, at the time that you obtained I'm talking strictly College Farm Road.
Okay, yeah, no, sir, it was not.
Okay,
Yeah.
it was not, okay? All right. Can you, and I think you've effectively done it to a certain extent, can you describe for the commission the layout and characteristics of your College Farm project? By the way, I went out there and I looked at it this afternoon, along with your new area that you're developing. And I must say that I think that the College Farm Road development looks very, very well.
Thank you.
All right, let's get back to the questions here. Kind of give us a little bit of an overview, if you will, of the College Farm Road development, versus what you intend to do with the new development? Is it essentially the same?
It's almost exactly the same. The buildings are gonna be, those buildings over there were in six units. These are gonna be split up a little bit. Some of them will be fours, some of them will be sixes. It's the same units though. Basically the same, there'll be some parking in there, green space, just like that one was laid out.
All right, so the first question then is with regard to this application of the park land design, dedication, and all that good stuff. Why do you feel your construction project at the old Hyco Road warrants a waiver?
Well, you know, I don't feel like this is a good policy. And just for the reason I told you a while ago, what if someone doesn't do a project because of this reason? Are you gonna, and then also, I think it's just a tax. That's all it is another tax.
I noticed that you have out there a good amount of open space.
Yes,
What
sir.
would be open space? What do you plan on doing with that?
It'll just be grassy areas.
Just grassy
Yes, sir.
areas?
Uh-huh.
Now, much like you did with regard to the College Road project,
Yes, sir.
you, I guess you plan on putting parking areas in there that would be covered by what, asphalt, just like you had at College Road?
Yes, sir.
Okay, same thing. Okay. When did you request your permit to build your old Hyco Road project?
I turned everything in a little over a month ago, probably 45 days ago, maybe.
When did you start construction to clear the area?
Prior to that, a couple months ago. But as soon as I got this place, as soon as I got the rezoning request approved, I got started on this project. I started getting the surveying and all that stuff done. And now I'm up to the point where I turned in all my stuff, and now this is the first I've ever heard of this subdivision stuff just now.
Okay, that to me is a critical question. At the time that you began your project,
Yes, sir.
okay, when did you first learn that now your project is gonna be subject to these new subdivisional, provisions?
Last week, 10 days ago, probably. So
And in
when
the
I turned,
meantime, excuse me, go ahead.
when I turned my stuff in, I turned it in, I guess, I don't know the exact day. It's 30, 45 days ago. But the first time I heard about this was just about 10 days ago.
Okay, so is it fair to say that you had already begun
Yes, sir.
partial construction before you became aware that now your project is going to be subject to this subdivision provisions?
Well, I wouldn't say I had done any construction, but I did tear down 2 rent houses that were on that property, relying on the fact that I thought this was, had no idea about this subdivision stuff. And I didn't do any construction now, but I did do a lot of demolition work over there.
I guess what I'm interested in is when and what prompted you to begin the project if you were not aware that there was a subdivision ordinance potentially that's going to affect your project?
I was relying on the last project I just got through doing. I assume it's gonna be the same deal. And so this was kinda whooped on me. I had no idea about this stuff.
All right. They're saying that you need to consider putting a park or go through with the dedication and fees under 620. Looking at your property and the way that it is designed and the units and so forth, where would you stick a park?
Well, it's not a very densely, I think it's 3.68 acres. I think you can get like 90 some odd units on there. And I'm doing 65, so there's gonna be a lot of open space, and I guess if there was an open space, I could certainly call that a park, or I mean,
Are you located, or is your property located close to any schools?
no, sir. I don't believe so.
Okay.
There's a church right there.
Okay, is the property located to any large residential area?
No, sir.
All right, the point I'm trying to make is that those potentially that might use a park, if it were required of your property, communities such as residential areas and possibly schools and things of this nature, they are not located in your area.
This is true, yes, sir.
All right. In fact, I think my recollection is that your property is located behind the Allsup filling station.
Yes, sir.
All right. Maybe your employee or the employees over there could take advantage of that. All right.
What percentage of the land in the entire project is going to be covered by structures and parking lot?
Oh, you know,
Can you give us
I,
a rough
I,
estimate
I'd hate to
percentage?
guess on that, you know, but it's not a very densely, it's not packed in there like some of them are. There's a lot of
I'm
grass.
talking about structures and parking lot.
Yes, sir. Yeah, there's still a
That
lot
would be,
of,
what, 50%, 60%?
probably, yes, sir.
Okay. So, open land, Jeremy, what's the specific specific definition of a park land design? Is it just open, or is it a park with facilities? I mean, he's essentially catty corner from Main City Park.
Right, with a parkland dedication fee, depending on the facilities, where they're at, where they're located, a fee can be asked or assessed in lieu of land.
Right.
So
But
if
he's
it's,
talking about 50 or at the most 60%. So in other words, 40% of the land would be open anyhow. I mean, could he just designate that as a park?
you would have to designate it, you'd have to dedicate it to the city, the land for that, and it
Or
would
you
have
have
to.
to
it'd have-
dedicate it to the city?
Yes, it had to
I-
be deeded, the property
okay.
has to be deeded over to the
Maybe
city.
maybe I misunderstood the definition, but I thought it was land that you continued to own that was, would continue to be, or would remain perpetually open.
No, sir.
That's,
No, it would be dedicated to the city would use it as parkland, and the city would upkeep that land. But that
okay.
has to be
And
accepted
would
by the
this-
city.
Would this be an easement, or would the deed actually transfer to the city?
The deed would transfer to the city. And it has to be accepted by the city through
I
the
can see
through our
why you
process.
consider that a tax. That's,
Just so you know, staff didn't, these are approved by council, so
Right,
if
I
we
understand.
can't change the rules to, you
Sure.
can ask for the waiver, but the rules can't be changed for this, so.
I have a question for you, Jeremy.
Shoot.
The parkland dedication was passed in 2012.
That's right.
Do you know why in 2015 this first project was not subject to this?
It should have been subject to it. The property was replatted, at the time, and so all applicable parkland dedication fees, subdivision orders should have been applied.
Did PandZ override it?
Never came to PNZ. The director at the time did not, I thought they must have thought they had the ability to waive this subdivision regulation, which is against the law, to waive the regulation without a waiver. And so only PNZ and council have that ability to grant a waiver, and at the time it was not.
It was Judy Miller.
Yeah.
She
We're,
also waived other things like flood studies,
Mhm.
I think on your property, right? Right next to, isn't you right next to the cemetery?
Well, I went in and got my permit.
No,
I do
know-
whatever.
I know this
Yeah.
isn't something that, I'm just saying Judy did
So,
a lot of stuff.
You never know what you're gonna get up here. So, I mean,
Right.
Well-
I just go up there and get whatever they ask me to go get, I go get it and try to get the project started.
Mr. Mayor, I think this is a great project. I mean, this is something that's needed here in Stephenville. I like it. I like the fact that it's going to be affordable housing for students or people who need these kind of places to live in. However, there are rules and there are ordinances, and we are obligated, as you are, to abide by these rules and ordinances. We can't go back and change what happened in 2015, okay? It sounds to me like you got a freebie, okay? Because whoever was in charge at that time did not bring up the parkland dedication as well as several of the other items that we're going to be talking about tonight. But since to me, it just seems like the burden is on you, since this has been in place since 2012, and other developments such as Mustang Ranch, Creekside, they've either dedicated land or they've paid their park dedication fee. So it just seems like to me that it's not the city's responsibility to tell you exactly what you need if you're the one who's going to be doing the development.
Yes, sir, yeah.
Are you represented by local council in these kind of matters, in ordinance matters?
No, sir, I mean, I just,
Okay.
no, sir, I
So
never have been.
you have not retained an attorney in Stephenville to hopefully keep you in compliance?
I try to
And
stay
like
away
you
from
s-
them.
Like you say, you only learned about this ordinance 10 days ago?
Yes, sir,
And it came in 2012?
yes, sir.
But it's the law, I mean, you can't plead ignorance.
Oh, yeah, well,
Yeah.
that's what I'm getting at, I'm trying to get at, is if you were represented by local council, your attorney should have advised you of this before you requested, but if you don't have legal representation, I can understand why you wouldn't have learned that, because, I was in a totally different profession, but I always stayed up with any kind of legislative action that would affect my business.
Yes, sir. Well, this is pretty hard to keep up with. I mean, this is
City
this
council
deal's
meets once a month.
well, it's constantly changing, everything's changing, and
Yeah.
But
it's,
this hasn't really changed, other
There's-
than, I mean, it's been the same. I know that in your experience, because of what happened,
Yeah,
it's not what your lived experience was.
Yeah.
But the reality of these regulations have been in place since 2012, with the exception of the sidewalk, which is an addition in 2018, but all the other regulations have been in place since 2012.
okay.
Mr. Mayo, if you are required to fulfill these requirements, what impact will that have on your completing the project?
Well, I'm not gonna say I'm not gonna do the project, but when you budget for something and you go in here and then all of a sudden you got a big surprise like this, it sure doesn't help. And, you know, that's gonna be passed on. I think Stephenville, my wife and I are in the real estate business, and we're in the rental business. And what we need in Stephenville is affordable housing. This doesn't, you know, with all these little fees and stuff that they tack onto here, does not help anything be affordable. It just doesn't help.
because ultimately your renter pays those fees.
He's gonna have to pay it, yes, sir.
Right.
And I try to build these as efficient as possible, and, you know, I cheaply as possible, not cheaply, but as efficiently as possible to make them affordable, because there's a big demand for that.
Jeremy, are Stephenville subdivision ordinance rules in line with other cities in the state,
Yeah,
our size?
it's a good question. When I sat down, when we were doing the rewrite of the subdivision ordinance, you know, we had a consultant, and when I sat down, I felt like, you know, some of these, we were really trying to be builder friendly but still manage our growth and the developments. And so I looked at quite a few other cities to see if what we were doing was in line, and this isn't any different than any other city with subdivision ordinance. You know, some may not require a sidewalk, some do, most have done curb and gutter, but parkland dedication is ever more popular now. I mean, it's come through because cities are having trouble funding parks. So none of these are much different than than any other ordinances from other cities. Now, am I say it's exactly like any other? No. You know, we try to mold it to be, you know, somewhat builder-friendly still, but these items are for the most part in any other city subdivision ordinance.
So this, yeah, you're right in saying this is an additional tax. That's
Yes.
exactly what it is.
Well, yeah, but it's to be addressed at a
But-
different level than
Right,
here.
right,
Yeah.
exactly,
What,
I don't,
exactly. I mean,
yeah,
we're bound by the city ordinance.
Yes, sir.
And,
could we squeeze a dog park on your, that could be a win-win, like if your tenants can have dogs,
Mhm.
you can have a city-run dog park on your property, that would draw in tenants, we need a dog park. Dog park.
Okay. Well,
Put it out
I'd be
there.
up for that. I just don't know the whole, I mean, yeah.
I know, I'm just saying, I don't know how much land you have, what, you know.
Well, I have some extra
How it's
land there. I
situated.
mean, it's,
He said 40% was not gonna.
I'm just
well,
saying,
I don't,
we need a
don't,
dog
now that
park.
number there, I don't know, cause I need to look at that. I'd have to look at that drawing and get the exact on
Okay.
that, cause I can't.
Well, I was just asking for a ballpark figure anyhow.
Yes, sir.
so.
Yeah, I don't know exactly, so.
I'd
So-
like to know where you would have stuck a park on that College Road Farm project of yours.
Yeah, there's not much room over there. I mean,
No, there isn't.
and that goes back to what I said a few minutes ago. I mean, you got a freebie on that one because the ordinance was there, and whoever was in charge at that time did not enforce that ordinance. So, I had a question, I can't think of what it was now, so. Are there any other questions for Mr. Mayo?
Not on this issue.
Not on this one,
particular
okay,
Issue, no.
great,
I
thank you,
don't
sir.
have any more.
Is there anybody else who would like to speak in favor of this, this case number? Okay, sir, if you would come to the podium and state your name.
My name's Ryan Gailey. I'm also a developer, multifamily builder like Bo. Didn't come prepared to say anything tonight, but after hearing everything, I just kind of wanted to say, kind of give my 2 cents. I know you guys can't make a decision on it or anything, but it's gotta start somewhere. But I've been disappointed in this park tax thing, ever since it was implemented. I was surprised by it back in 2013, right before I went to get my CO. I was surprised by it by Betty Chu. She said, "You building 16 units, can you write me a check $4,800 for your parkland tax," or whatever it was, whatever she called it at that time. So did that, went on down the road. After she left, that's when Judy came in, things like that. It was, I never got I always had to do a drainage study, went through the processes just like before. But that parkland was waived on my stuff. I had so much trouble. It was never brought up again and through the deal until recently. I don't know, a month or 2 ago, Jeremy brought it to my attention. I'm developing a couple properties now that were permitted and already kind of in the process and going, but there's another property that I'm looking at, replatted, and we'll be starting that project probably, around August or September. And he brought it to my attention again that, that this would be, now enforced. So I just kind of wanted to give my 2 cents in on that I don't agree with it. I feel like if we're going to increase the parkland or increase those kinds of things, let's do a street fund. If we're increasing the population, let's change this over. Let's get these streets. Everybody drives, not everybody goes to the park. So anyway, that's just kind of what I wanted to say.
Thank you, sir.
Thank
All right, pardon me, I'll ask now if there's anybody who wishes to speak in opposition for this case. Hearing none, I'll close the public hearing and I will open it up to comments among the commissioners. Commissioners?
Well, I think this project is necessary, I think it needs to be done, I'm all in favor of affordable housing. I don't see how we can approve the waiver. It seems like it would just open a floodgate of people coming forward wanting waivers, and if that needs to be done, that needs to be done at council level. It needs to be a decision about the subdivision ordinances, but I don't think we are in the position of wanting every developer to be coming to us wanting a waiver.
Right, if if we waive this tonight, then what's to stop future developers from coming in and asking for a waiver when this is a rule and an ordinance? So, and it's been on the books since 2012. And also, as I said earlier, other developments have abided by this as well. So that's my 2 cents.
I think a waiver would actually be, should be considered, under certain conditions, that, a certain percentage of the property would, remain as open, open land that could be accessed by somebody other than the residents, possibly an easement to the city as opposed to a deed to the city. The city council is the one that came up with the ordinance. I think we should basically throw it in their lap as to what should be done, because,
Whatever we decide tonight will go to city council.
right,
They
I
will make the
understand
final, they will make the final decision on that,
Right.
so,
but, we can recommend one way or the other, so.
correct. That's right.
And, it would be, like I say, under certain conditions, it would be my inclination to approve the waiver.
We
Or
shouldn't,
to
be-
recommend approval of the waiver.
you're not gonna be able to put conditions on that particular, saying the parkland dedication fee needs to be in fee or worked out through the development process on
Right.
what we're accepting in the deed process. So you can't say, oh, you're gonna do 40%, it's gonna be an easement. That's not part of it. So it's either you accept the waiver or deny the waiver.
Okay.
And then if we accept the waiver or deny the waiver, then he has to come work out the parkland dedication fee part of it. And whether that's
Right.
dedication of land or fee, that'll be something that we work out in the development process.
But the city council obviously could address it because they're the ones that create ordinances. And, if they saw that this ordinance that they came up with that seemed simple 6 years ago, that, has created a lot of complications, they might reconsider it.
I'm ready to make a motion.
I'll entertain a motion to accept or deny the request for a waiver on this case.
I move that in case number SV 2018-001, we make a recommendation to the city council that in that particular case, that there in fact be a waiver granted.
Okay, a motion has been made by Mr. Petronis and seconded by Justin Allison to, make sure I get this right, to approve the waiver to go to council for the
Recommendation to
A
council.
recommendation.
parkland, recommendation for parkland dedication. All those in favor of this, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
Nay,
No.
Nay. Okay, that was who?
nays.
2, 4, I'm sorry, 1, 2,
Nay.
3, 4, 5. So 1, 2, so that was denied. 1, 4, all right. Our next case is case number SV 2018-02. Applicant Bo Mayo is requesting a subdivision waiver from section 6.04H, street design criteria, for the development to be constructed at 1000 Old High Cove Road. I'll open up the public hearing. Is there anybody here or open up the public hearing for anybody who wishes to speak in favor of this?
On these sidewalks and gutters and all, half the road, all that stuff, there's not a gutter or sidewalk within, I don't know, well, Allsup's has it, but you go around that whole area over there and you can go south to the whole neighborhood over there and there's not sidewalks and gutters. I think this is a kind of a no-frills project. Like, once again, I'm trying to keep it affordable. And it's just gonna add an extra cost to the property.
This particular road, this old Hyco Road, it looked like it was maybe at one time maintained by the county. is just basically, an asphalt road. There is virtually no curbing whatsoever on that full length,
Yes, sir.
okay? There's nothing that's going on over there. And is the city wanting him now to take that particular piece of road and now maintain it, put in one half of it, and then put curbing in and so forth?
That's right, the subdivision calls for that. We asked Allsup's to do the same thing. They complied with that.
Of course, they're on a busy thoroughfare.
But this would be busy. We're looking at 63 townhouses. We're looking at residents coming and going and rainfall and needing to have proper gutters as part of that, part of having good.
Have you been out there to look at that roadway?
Yeah, and I went out and I also looked at College Farm Road and I thought that should have been guttered as well. That's part of development. That's part of how a city develops. You put in gutters, you put in curbs.
Are there other questions for Mr. Mayo? Tell me again, maybe I missed it when you were first talking. The reason that you don't think that you should have a waiver is
On the curbs and gutters,
on
all of it? Well, because
on this particular one we're talking about right now.
well, I'm talking about all of it.
Well, we're talking about this one issue, one case number right now.
Which one is it? I'm sorry.
This is case number SV 2018-02,
Street design.
street design. That you,
The city wants me to rebuild half the street out there. I just don't, I think that's what taxes are for. Just another tax.
this ordinance has been on the books, so to speak, since 1991. And as a developer, I would expect that you would know that, would know what needs to be done when you're building a development.
I've never done it before, so, and I've been, this is not my first project.
I understand.
So-
As was mentioned previously, you know what, if whoever was in charge at that time, if they didn't bring this to your attention, then you got a freebie. But it should have been enforced. So, are there other questions for Mr. Mayo? This one.
I have one for Jeremy.
Mhm.
The idea, and I understand that a lot of the road is not curved, like Mr. Petronas pointed out, but the general idea with the ordinance is that as it continues to develop, it will all be brought to where.
Yeah, two
Correct.
things on that. That's the idea, is that, development pays for the roads. I mean, the city's not in the business of building roads. The developments typically do that.
Correct.
The other part of this is that, Mr. Mayo's responsible for building the road to the standard, meaning, let me try to simplify this. That road, the Old Hiker Road, when Allsup's was doing it, was a 22-foot road. The standard is supposed to be 31 feet. So Mr. Mayo, the road itself needs to be 9 feet wider is what it would be. So he would have to do his half of that. So he would have to widen the road 4.5 feet and then tie that to his driveways. That's his part. Widen the road 4.5 feet. He doesn't have to build the road up. Our old subdivision regulations did call for him to
Yeah.
bring that road up to par, up to code. This new subdivision does not do that. That was removed. So he's
With
doing,
the-
he has to do his 4.5 feet and tie that into his ingress egress.
With the idea
With
that
curb and
as it
gutter.
continues to develop, it will all be done.
That's right.
Okay.
And this is standard practice, right? And
Yes.
I mean, this is what cities do. As my understanding, this is how developments are,
That's right.
how.
I mean, you
Right.
get some, and we had a conversation just last night. I mean, you get into conversations where there's, maybe a large road or something that the cost is just overwhelming, that you can, the city can enter into a development agreement, a 380 agreement to help that developer out if it's warranted. And Mr. Mayo did, get one of those when he extended a sewer line. So there are options. It's not, for cities to help with development if they choose to do that. So, but this is a common practice in most cities, yes.
Mr. Mayo, how much do you think, just estimate, that it would cost you for this portion of what we're talking about, the streets? That the four, the
Just
four
the
four
street
feet,
part.
4.5 feet,
Well,
from one end to the
D-
other?
Don't quote me on the 4.5 feet. I
Right,
mean, I'm
okay.
using.
Let's just say
pretty close.
the area that you would have, that you would be responsible for. Because that road out there, as was mentioned back in September when you came for the zoning, the road is crumbling. It's falling apart out there. But I'm curious what your estimate would roughly be.
yeah, I don't know, $20,000 maybe, I don't know.
Okay. Okay. Are there any other questions for Mr. Mayo? Thank you, sir.
Right.
Appreciate it. Is there anybody else who would like to speak in favor of this waiver? Is there anybody who wishes to speak against this waiver? Hearing none, I'll close the public hearing and I'll open it back up to comments among the commissioners. Commissioners, what are your thoughts on this?
I think the same as last, if we waive this for him, we gotta, agree to waive it for everyone, it's standard practice, and it just needs to be folded into the cost of the development.
It seems like this is the wrong spot to be bypassing it. It needs to be done at a higher level than here. That's how I feel about it.
I don't see any need to waive this particular one, because anything that borders a street is going to be required to put in street facilities if they're not there. So I see no need for a waiver here at all on this particular issue. The previous one, yes, but not this one.
Questions? All right, I'll close this portion of the hearing, and I'll now entertain a motion to accept or deny the request for a waiver concerning street design criteria SV 2018-002.
I'll make a motion that SV 2018-002, that the waiver not be granted.
I second.
Motion has been made by Bruce DeLater and seconded by Lisa Latouche to deny the request for a waiver concerning street design criteria. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed?
No,
It was Justin. Okay, it was Justin and. Okay. All right. All right, okay. We will now move on. Pardon me, allergies are killing me. Our next case is case number SV 2018-003. Applicant Bo Mayo is requesting a subdivision waiver from section 6.04 streets, M1A. A 6-inch standard curb shall be constructed on both sides of all streets for the development to be constructed at 1000 Old Hyco Road. Jeremy?
Standard language at the beginning of your packet is, it is applicable to the subdivision ordinance. The developer shall construct their proportional share of the budding street and its apparatuses such as curb, gutter, sidewalks, barrier-free ramps, streets, trees, etc. The city's design standards for that type of street. A 6-inch standard curb shall be construction on both sides of all streets. And so,
Okay. All right, I'm going to open up the public hearing now for those people those who wish to speak in favor of this waiver. I'm sorry, Mr. Mayo, this is how we have to do it this way.
well, I see how this is going, so I'm not even gonna present an argument as far as the curbs, but I am kind of coming back here on those sidewalks here in a second, so.
Okay. Is there, hang on,
Let me ask you a
Bruce.
question
Okay,
first,
go ahead.
though. As you understand this, is it your understanding that you need to place curbs on both sides of Old Hyco Road or on just one side?
I sure hope not, I don't think so.
it's just one side, his
It's
proportional
just the
share.
one side, okay, because it here says both sides.
Right,
Or are-
but it says
or
his
are we-
proportional share for both sides. So his proportional share would be the one side.
No language like proportional.
Yeah.
Okay.
Section 6.04, the developer shall construct their proportional share of the abutting street and its apparatuses.
Okay,
It ain't there.
but,
It's in your packet.
it says something else here, so I'm just wondering, are you putting streets in this development? Or are you just basically putting driveways and parking lots? I mean, there's going to be no named street?
Oh, no, sir.
Okay, so you're putting in driveways for ingress and egress for the entire property?
Yes, sir, yeah.
Okay,
With a fire lane that
well,
goes.
I didn't know whether you were possibly constructing a street from Old Hyco Road over to Highway 108 or what?
No, sir.
Okay, that's all I need to know.
All right, is there anybody else who wishes to speak in favor of this waiver? Is there anyone wishes to speak against it? Hearing none, I'll close the public portion of this hearing, and I will again turn it over to comments from the commissioners.
Why are we, my first question is, why are we deciding on two different things here when we covered it on the previous case in terms of street design? Because street design includes curbs, does it not?
You'd have to ask.
They're all separate waivers, so you're hearing them individually. Although it's all a part of it, you're hearing
Yeah.
waivers. So if you wanted to waive one and not the other, that gives you the opportunity. So this one is about curb and gutter. We just heard the street waiver request. This one is regarding the curb and gutter, which he has asked
Oh,
for as well.
okay, I misunderstood then. I thought the previous one was all of the appurtenances.
It was just the 4.5 feet or his share of
Right.
the road on the previous case.
Okay,
And am I correct, Jeremy, this ordinance has been in effect since 2012?
That's right.
Okay. Are there any other comments from the commissioners? Lisa?
I think the same as I have all along, that I don't see how we can waive this and not waive it for every developer. It's part of city design.
All right, I'll close this portion of the hearing, and I will entertain a motion to accept or deny, pardon me, the request for a waiver concerning case number SV 2018-003.
I make a motion that we deny the request.
I'll second.
Motion has been made by Meta Collier, seconded by Bruce DeLater to deny case number SV, the request deny the request for the waiver concerning case number SV 2018-003. All those in favor of this denial, say aye. Aye. All those opposed?
Nay.
Okay. That was Justin and Dr. Petronis. All right. Now we'll move on to the final case here. This is case number SV 2018-003. Applicant Bo Mayo, applicant Bo Mayo is requesting a subdivision waiver from section 6.04K street and alley requirements. In addition, a 5-foot wide sidewalk is required on the developing side of the street to provide pedestrian safety and to meet the requirements of the Americans with Disabilities Act. Jeremy.
Well, you pretty much, you read it, it's just a requirement of the new subdivision. This was not in place until January, so this was not in place, and we adopted this with the new subdivision. There was a request to look at that with new subdivisions to, look at sidewalks to make the city more, walkable city, so it was included in the new subdivision regulations.
Okay, thank you. I'll now open the public hearing for anybody who wishes to speak in favor of this waiver.
Well, once again, on the sidewalks, who's gonna walk on them? Where are they gonna go? If you look at that, there's not gonna be just people strolling down through there. I'm gonna have sidewalks inside my property for the tenants, but I just don't see anyone walking down through there. And I think it's wasteful.
Okay, all right. All right, Commissioners, are there any questions concerning the sidewalks for Mr. Mayo?
What is the total length of your property from,
I think it's 600 and some odd feet there. That's not accurate.
I didn't have the newest one, so that, it was platted differently. Our records haven't been updated from the appraisal district, so I was just putting that so you guys knew what property we were talking about. But the length of that, or none of that is correct on.
It's
the
600 and some odd feet, I think,
Fronting on-
across the front.
When this project was begun, this had not been put into place yet.
That's correct. You know, I imagine, I don't know, I mean, I know we heard the rezone request last year prior to this. I'm guessing that Mr. Mayo has been formulating the plans for some time, either along with that or prior to the subdivision coming into play.
Other questions?
that's really for Jeremy. The ADA, the American with Disabilities Act, it's a federal law, correct? And it
Mhm.
requires us,
We have to build them to the specifications if we were gonna do the
so
sidewalk.
why is there even a discussion of a waiver? I mean, if it's a federal law,
Well, they gotta build them to spec to the ADA.
You do.
If you do it, you have to do it to it. You have to do it to those regulations.
but we're not required to do it in the first place?
Our subdivision requires it.
But that's what we're being asked to grant a waiver on is, the necessity of putting the sidewalk parallel to the street. And Mr. Mayo testified that he's gonna be putting sidewalks in the development.
I still look to the future, and we, you know, however the city is developed, I mean, we can't just assume that this is never gonna be a walkable area.
Bill, did you, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I was gonna, Bo, will you, on the sidewalks that you're going to put in the development, will they be ADA approved?
Well, they'll be, I guess, is that the width on it, Jeremy?
Yeah, 5 feet, and I'm
No,
gonna
they
do
will
this,
not-
and
They will not be ADA. They'll be 3-foot wide sidewalks.
I don't know, we wouldn't require them on private property. It only a public access, so I don't think we would require him to build it to ADA. We'd probably recommend it to him.
This is hard though, because we need this subdivision.
Bill, did you
I don't
have-
think it's a subdivision though,
Did you have a
Meta. It's
question?
not a subdivision.
Yeah, I know, I went over that.
I tend to
How do we
agree
get
with
this
you
out
in
of the
that
subdivision
regard.
category, and,
Google the word subdivision and get a
you know,
good
we're just
definition.
bound by
Yeah.
these
Mhm.
rules, and
Yeah.
I hate it for you.
Well, it's gotten mixed messages over the years, and
I know.
I apologize for that.
Yeah, I do too.
We're gonna apply this until we're told not to apply it. So,
No,
I mean, so the message will be clear.
Right.
Whether we agree with it or not, we're gonna apply the subdivision
I was saying
regulations.
In the
and-
past, it seemed like you got some
Right.
mixed
Mhm.
messages.
For sure.
And, you know, if you're going forward on something like that, and, you know, you kind of went blind, I guess, on what you knew from your past works.
Yes, sir. Yeah.
I apologize for that.
Are there any more questions for Mr. Mayo? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Is there anybody else who wishes to speak in favor of this waiver? Is there anybody who wishes to speak against this waiver? For it, okay.
Again, my name's Ryan Gailey. Yeah, I don't see there be any reason to put a sidewalk out there in this area. I mean, future development out there. I mean, I know Stephenville's growing, but, I mean, come on. I mean, really a sidewalk out there. And speaking with the city and all of that kind of stuff, this is the first I've heard about this is tonight, as far as being able to, as far as being required to put in sidewalks on the city side too. So there are some things that we don't know. I mean, Stephenville's a small town, the word gets around, and Bo and I probably talk twice a year, not very much, and we got each other's cell numbers, and I talked to a lot of other developers, but this is the first I've heard of it. But as far as what we're talking about tonight, I mean, that should be, I can't see the point in that, so.
Thank you, sir. Is there anybody who wishes to speak against this waiver? Hearing none, I'll close the public hearing, and I'll turn it over to comments among the commissioners. Commissioners, are there any other comments or opinions that you have on this?
Jeremy, Mustang Ranch and Creekside townhomes are under these same subdivision rules, right? And
Well,
do
they-
they have sidewalks? Did they?
They were applied in
Before
the
that.
previous subdivision, so those were not applicable to that, because we did not adopt a sidewalk. The old subdivisions say may. This subdivision says shall, which means they need to include them. And so this is really the first subdivision that we've done that I know of that, applies to the new subdivision. I mean, as far as multifamily type of subdivision.
I tend to lean towards allowing a waiver on this since it wasn't adopted until January of this year. Is that right? That what you said, Jeremy?
Yeah, that's right.
But I'm torn. But I'm torn because I like sidewalks. So it's a tough one. This one is hard for me in particular, so.
Well, and if we waive this one and then the remaining property develops and it has sidewalk, so either we have to waive it all.
Right.
Or,
Which comes down to, again, every time we grant a waiver, everybody can come forward and say, I mean, this is tough. Nobody's gonna wanna put in sidewalks, because it's expensive. But I love sidewalks, and I think they make a city more walkable, and, my neighborhood does not have sidewalks, and I hate it. It's bad for kids, it's bad for old people, it's bad for walking your dog, for doing anything.
It's just a quality line.
It's a quality of
Yeah.
life issue, and it's one of those things that you don't wanna, I get it, I get not wanting to pay for it, I
Mhm.
do.
Understood.
I get that this is an area right now that's not developed, but if we wanna be a city that has this in the future, if we wanna be a walkable city, if we wanna be an appealing city, I think it's something we have to suck it up and do.
yeah, pardon me, the other question is, what happens if this plan goes through and then somebody decides to buy the lots across the street and, and develop those, make a housing development over there? Is it not?
Hey,
But
Today.
Today
Yeah,
it's
who's to
not,
say?
but I'm looking
years and years.
years in the future, so.
That's what we do. We make decisions
This is
for 10
planning.
years.
that's
I
right.
mean,
Right.
that's our job, we plan.
Okay.
Vote.
All right, I'll entertain a motion to accept or deny the request for a waiver concerning streets and alley requirements dealing with the development of a sidewalk in the proposed addition.
I move we accept the waiver and recommend it to the city council.
Motion has been made by Richard Petronis to approve the waiver and send to city council, and seconded by Justin. All those in favor of approving this waiver signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
Nay.
No, nay. So we had, the noes were Nick, Mark, Lisa, Meta. Which, Bill, what was yours?
I'm gonna go yea. Sorry.
All right, I'm just making sure I get everything here, so. Cliff?
I voted for the waiver.
You voted for it. So this passes 5-4. So, and this will go to council. So, Jeremy, is there anything else tonight?
Well, I'd love to, since if we're gonna go in a workshop, invite, both the developers here to have that quick conversation about those two items that we have. So, just to give them a heads up, they'll stay for a few minutes and give us some feedback on those zoning issues that we have.
Okay.
That was my notes, yeah.
Let me go ahead and entertain a motion to close this portion of the meeting. So,
So made.
motion's been made and
Second.
seconded to, All those in favor of closing this portion of the meeting, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, like sign. This meeting of the Planning and Zoning Commission is officially